your life, you deserve to be more, be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.
So welcome to Becoming More, where once again, you understand through other people's experiences, learning from them, which is the best way to learn, right? And once we learn from them, we can put their experiences to use right in our own life. Today, I'm excited because one of my friends, which we actually went to Israel together, that's where I really got to know Tyler. And Tyler Dickerhoof is a renowned mentor and advisor for entrepreneurs and executives who are seeking effective leadership guidance. He has led an organization of over 250,000 individuals and supported his wife, Kelly, in becoming one of the top 5 income earners in isogenics. Tyler holds a degree from Cornell University and has more than 20 years of experience in starting multiple businesses that have generated over $700 million in sales. His expertise in leadership is highly sought after by leaders of all types who want to elevate their teams to new levels. Growing up and working in the agricultural industry, Tyler witnessed firsthand the tough and challenging nature of leadership. This upbringing and experience have driven him to grow and transform himself to be able to lead and connect with all types of people in all industries. Today, I know he will connect with us, teach us a lot, sharing his experiences and how he has over the years continued to become more. Welcome, Tyler. We're so excited that you're here. So welcome, Tyler. I know you so well, yet I'm going to have you just take us back a little bit and just explain to us who is Tyler, so all the people listening absolutely get to know you.
Man, who is Tyler? I should have been prepared for that. I don't know. I mean, who is Tyler? Tyler is a guy who loves who loves life in the sense that, man, I'm competitive. I love to see people succeed. I love to be a collaborator. I grew up in Ohio. I grew up on a dairy farm, was involved in sports, not real athletic, made my way around the country. I spent time in New York, time in California. Now I live in Washington. Absolutely love the Pacific Northwest. And one thing that has probably been a constant through much of my life is just seeing results by action. And seeing results by action and just how fulfilling that can be. And one thing that, as you and I have spent time together through the Maxwell organization, trips to Israel, trips to sitting in a doctor's office in Columbus where we last saw each other almost a year ago now, spending those times. One of the things that I love is through that action and the curiosity of learning about people and seeing what uniqueness people bring. And really what I love doing, whether it's coaching, whether it's leading, whether it's having conversations like this, is being able to make connections and help people accomplish what they never thought they could. And so those are things. I'm a Buckeye who, again, grew up on a farm, loves cows. You might see cows walking in the background, some steers, but that's who I am.
So you're in Spokane, Washington right now. What's it like up there?
Today is supposed to be a high of 73. I think it's right now in maybe the mid 40s. It's a little crisp. Trees are turning. It is gorgeous. I love this part of the country because it is, we get all the seasons, but it's not humid. And humidity just makes my hair frizz. And so, I grew up long enough in humidity to understand I don't like humidity. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with all that hair, I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
One time I was taking my kids up and I said, hey, we lived in Colorado. I said, we're going to see the trees turn because I love to look at the colors. And we're driving through the mountains and my one son said, okay, when are they going to start turning? I go, well, they are turning. And he thought they meant turn around. He was about 5 years old, right?
Yeah, I get it.
You said that. I thought that's so fun. So you grew up literally working at the agricultural industry.
Yeah.
What was
Absolutely.
that like? What did you learn from that?
Oh man, I learned so much about life. I learned resilience. I learned endurance. There was a few years ago, and I was at maybe 50 yards from where I'm sitting now, and it was December. It was 10 degrees below zero. We had just got a bunch of snow, and over my left shoulder, you can kind of see a little bit. There's some pine trees, and I
Right.
remember like just taking a picture, and I could see the lights on my barn. I was taking care of my cows, and at that point, my wife Kelly had said, "Tyler, you just love to be outside the cows." I'm like, "No. Some days I hate it. When it's 10 degrees below zero, it is, the 17th of December and there's a foot of snow on the ground. No, I don't want to have to do this. But I also, in that moment, realized you have to put up with 215 days of just teeth gritting. This is not fun to be able to experience the 150 days of, I really enjoy this. I'm glad I get to do it. And so as I thought about that moment, that day, that's a part of me growing up on a farm and just being around cows and understanding that lifestyle, understanding doing the work. I just read a devotional a friend of mine sent me the other day, and there was an element where it talked about planting, cultivating, and harvesting. And it was interesting. I made the understanding, the rationalization. I shared this with him is, there's always a time to plant, but no different animals, plants, it's all the same. There's a time to plant, but the length of time to cultivate is different. And this devotional happened to be about athletes. He actually, the person that shared this with me is a director of a college football character development program. And I was thinking about this, like, hey, whether it's farm or whether it's athletes, everyone's planted. They're at where they're at, but the amount of cultivation that it takes varies for every single person, just as it depends on animals or crops. And I think back of that's what I learned growing up on a farm is that cultivation looks different for everyone, and the timing is different, but there's a harvest time. And if we try to apply the same plant, cultivate, and harvest for every season of our life, sometimes we're going to harvest and it's too late. Sometimes we're going to harvest and it's too early. And it's really going through the process of learning it, harvesting at the right time. And every season of life varies. And so that's what again, as I sit here and I talk about it, I learned from growing up on a farm.
Well, the other part is the seeds that we plant. And I know you're very
Yeah.
good at this because the seeds that we plant in our heads,
Oh, yeah.
those either they're going to harvest and they're going to
Yeah.
harvest good or bad. So let's go back into some times
Yeah.
because I know you and I are very authentic. That's the one thing we love
Yeah.
about each other. We're very transparent. So what are some times in your life that maybe you didn't plant great seeds in your mind and then you had to learn to become more, you had to change the seeds you were planting?
I think that was about every day of my life until I was probably 35 or 36, to be honest. And it was, one of the things that I realized that I struggled with, but I didn't know what it was insecurity. And it's just like, what value do I have? Growing up on a farm in a time and age, we can interact with people today, whether it's in real estate, you probably see this all over your agents. They're like, man, people, they want little farms. They want a few acres. They want chickens. They want, long Highland cattle. They want all those, right? Well, you go back 15, 20 years ago, and if you had an agricultural property, you couldn't give that thing away because people didn't
Right.
want it. And growing up on a farm, it was very much of oh, well, you're a farmer, you're dumb. Because, farmers, if you were smart, you would go do something more worthwhile. And that was the culture that I grew up in. And, so living in that world, being a farm kid and having aspirations and enjoying it, and then the rest of the world was just kind of like looked down upon it. It was very disconcerting, and I wasn't real athletic because I matured really late. I was a small kid through most of high school, and so a lot of my interactions was just like, what value do I have? And so when I think about the mindset that I had, a lot of it was, oh, I'm not worth very much. Or I remember writing, and it's just hitting me right now. I think this was a poem in college, and I remember it's like, I want to be a 50-cent piece because I'm penny. And what do people do with pennies? They throw them away because they're worthless. But being a 50-cent piece has more value. And I don't remember the real extent of that poem and what I wrote. I remember I was at work and I worked at a gym and there was no one around. And I remember writing that. And it was just, that was a part of my life at that point of just trying to figure out what value do I have. And quite honestly, through ups and downs and having success in business and riding the roller coaster through tough financial times like 07, 08 and extended through, 10, 11, 12. And a lot of that time was like, what value do I have? And then ultimately through a matter of just mistakes and my wife having success and having enough success in business that we could, take care of things and continue to progress forward. But I was always yearning for my place. And I remember it was, I must have been at that point, I was 38. And one of my goals for the years was to find a mentor. And I'd never really had one. I'd never really done a lot of self-development because I didn't like to read. And I got to a point where I was just frustrated. I was sick of always kind of, pushing and like get knocked back and pushing and get knocked back, pushing and not getting knocked back. And that was the season that I got introduced to John Maxwell and that whole community and people like you that have absolutely over the last now 7, 8 years changed my life because of the friendships, the relationships, the connections, but me also understanding, oh, I do have value. And it was my insecurity that you really perpetuated those toxic beliefs and negative mindsets. And it was learning about, Carol Dweck and a growth mindset, and everyone can grow and get better. But that was very much a part of my life of having a pretty negative, I would say toxic mindset.
Well, and not only the mindset, feeling that you were undervalued or didn't have value. There's so many people right now out in the world that are feeling that way, that we're speaking with, that are saying,
Absolutely.
I don't think I have any value. What gift do I have? So and I believe we all have a gift. Some people just haven't opened it up yet. When did you open up your gift? When did you discover the value that you had?
Oh, I'd say I really didn't understand it until 2 people spoke it into me. Be honest, when and I say this, and this was not set up, but I didn't realize the value I had until John and Mark spoke it into me. And that would be John Maxwell, Mark Cole. Plain and simple. I didn't. I didn't. I didn't. Go ahead.
No, I just say that people grow into the conversations you create around them. And it sounds like they created a conversation that your mind just grabbed hold of, wanted it so badly to be true. You started living into that. So can we go back to that moment when they had that conversation? Can you get those feelings back for us again? What happened inside?
Well, I mean, for me, it was. I think I'd had times where I'd had success. I'd accomplished things. It doesn't matter to most people, but through dairy organizations and things, I won national championships. I accomplished things. But again, in that world, great. In the rest of the world, no one cared. It was meaningless and almost irrelevant. And it was kind of, again, always in that juxtaposition. And part of my insecurity of saying, what value do I have, and trying to profess my value through what knowledge I had. And it was, I don't know if it was one exact conversation or just a couple instances of being around them and them speaking belief into me. It's like, man, you have gifts, you have ability. I mean, you're a great connector. You're a good speaker. You're a great communicator. You can do these things. And them telling me, it's like, well, I think I can kind of do those things. Is that valuable? Like in this package? And they'll be like, yes. Here's the other part that also coincided with all of that. And it was me understanding part of the value and the opportunity that I had to express to people the resilience and or I would say dealing with adversity. So one thing that happened to me when I was 14, Again, grew up on a farm, and part of my summer job every year from probably, I don't know, 10 through graduate high school was we would bale hay, we would bale straw, we would, do those things in the summer. And part of my job was to make sure that the equipment was ready. So whenever we went and cut hay, when we baled, when we hauled the wagons in to put all the hay or straw into the barn, that they were all in operating condition. And so one day, it was right after my freshman year of high school, and it was I think it was a Saturday, and we were getting ready. I think we were going to start on Monday, and we were going to have a big week of a lot of hay to bale. And so I was getting the wagons ready on that Saturday afternoon, making sure that they were greased up, that the tires were all full of air, all in working condition. And it was about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'm trying to back this wagon up a hill. Well, if you've ever tried to, even one of those little carts, pull kids, and you try to back a wagon up the hill, it doesn't work real well, right? And, me 14, like, all right, so I decide I'm going to turn around and try to come from a different angle, not uphill. And as I started to pull forward and turn around pulling this wagon, I look over to my left-hand side, and there's a grass area in between that driveway and our house. And it was maybe 100 yards in length. And out there in the grass area was my little brother, and he was just playing. He was playing with the ball, playing with something. And so I wave at him, and I proceed to turn around and try to bring this wagon in from a different angle. And I look down on the driveway, and there he laid. I'd driven over him. And he was 3, I was 14. And that moment in life not only was a challenge, it was a challenge for my family, it was a challenge of how I dealt with it. And that through later process identified how I really guarded myself from some of that pain and some of that hurt and my insecurities. But it was many years later, 23, 24, 25 years later, kind of around this same period I was talking about of me understanding I'd value, is I had just gotten done taking my son to soccer practice. I think he was probably, at this point, he might have been 7, 8, 9, something like that. And we're driving home, and I'm at a stop sign. And I look to my left, and there's no traffic coming. So I look to my right just to check, look back left, no traffic. And I start to pull out. And I hear, and I'm a person of faith, and I hear God say to me, your brother's life has purpose. See, part of his purpose was me just sharing the story of his life. But the purpose was identifying and understanding how I dealt with it. See, how I dealt with it is right after that event, right after he died, emergency personnel come, the ambulance, the sheriff, all those things. And again, it's a Saturday afternoon, about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And that was the typical time that we would start milking our cows. We'd milk our cows twice a day, 5 in the morning,
Right.
5 at night, something like that. And I don't know where my dad was, probably with my mom, whatever else, not sure. And I'm talking to the sheriff, and he's sitting on the hood of his car, and I'm standing across from him. I'm not real tall, maybe 5'6", 5'7", and I'm looking at him straight in the eyes, and he's asking me questions. And at this point, I'm done. I'm fed up with it. I'm irritated. I'm like, it's an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident. And I'm just done. And so I look at him, I look at the barn, and I say, I'm going to go into that barn, and I'm going to milk those cows. And if you want to come with me, great. If not, we're done. And I said it, and as I remember, it was such veracity and intensity as I just said it to you. That's how I remember that moment. And see, if I go forward about 23, 24 years back into this 2017, 2018, that period in time, right, where all these things are happening. There's a time in our business. We owned a gym, our network marketing business. We had some real estate investments. And so we had multiple employees and just normal things. Someone didn't show up for work, or, maybe they didn't quite do the job right. Just normal stuff, not a big deal. And I just got done working out. I'm sitting on the bench in the gym, in the locker room, and I start to drink my protein shake. And just as I start to drink it, again, person of faith, and I hear, God say to me, this is how you deal with things. See, part of my mask, my armor to my insecurity was my intensity. If anything got difficult, I'd just put my head down and push. and I would push and I would get through it. The problem is that I would often leave carnage. See, as I describe it, intensity is a bulldozer. You want to level a mountain? Oh, you'll get it done. But the problem is intensity leaves carnage. So you bulldoze right through people. And I was really efficient at that. Oh, I will get it done. It will get done. And what I realized in that moment is like, yeah, this doesn't work. That's why you have the relationship challenges. That's why you have, a lot of these not feeling valued because, dude, you just overwhelm people. It's too much. And so all of those things coupled together, whether it was my brother's life had purpose because I went through that experience of intensity and understanding for 25 years what intensity did to me in relationships. And sure, I could have some success business-wise, but yet if I look over here with my wife and my kids and anyone else, dude, it was broken because I would just push myself through. I would just push.
Well, did you
And
really push yourself through it? Or did you just keep going, wearing a mask of a character that you desired to play and thought you needed to play that character when the real character was somewhat dying inside of you?
That's a really good question. I think it was a little bit of both. I think that intensity and persistence, resilience got me through it to where I don't want to say it would almost be numb to it, but a little callous. It was quite honestly, there were times I was described as an a-hole because it was about me and I'd get through it. And
Aren't we all?
yeah, well, I mean, but that's the result to me as I've learned of intensity. And see, one of the great things that I've understood is intensity is an absolute barrier to leadership. It's not when you hear someone's like, oh, you're intense, that's not a good thing. Now, there's moments of intensity that can be good to be very directed. But if someone says, hey, you're intense, really what I feel like they're saying, you're too much. Just take a chill pill. And what I've realized is, see, there's a difference between being passionate. And I understand that word can be ill-defined and, kind of compassionate, just this idea of like, oh, I want to go and like energetic, right? There's an intensity that's almost labeled around that. But intensity is when somebody looks at you in that fertile brow like I am now, and they're just like, I am going to win at all costs. That's not healthy. That doesn't do good for anyone, especially in leadership. And so when your intensity is along those lines, then it's going to cause damage. The difference is when you are empathetic and you're compassionate and you take people with you, dude, that's when you can accomplish great things. And that's what I learned. And it's really, I define empathy as putting your arms around someone and walking with them. And see, that to me is the solution to insecurities. That's the solution to intensity, is to be empathetic, to put your arms around someone and like, hey, we're in this together. Now, what happens is when you put your arms around someone, does it mean you have to go slow? No, not at all. I liken it to when, like a track meet, right? In the 4x100, the 4x400, and they have to pass a baton. Well, in order to pass the baton properly and at speed, the runner doesn't come, stop, hand it to the next person, they grab it and go.
Right.
No, they run at pace together. Well, the same can be done if you put your arm around someone, whether in a leadership capacity. Doesn't mean you have to go slow, but you have to go at the same pace. And in that process of learning, sometimes you have to learn at what pace everyone can go. And it's different for everyone. And that's a challenge of leadership. And if you choose intensity of like, you're either with me or you're dead, well, then you're going to be alone. It's not going to work.
You're not a leader. So I want to go back to where you have this mask on, which makes sense. we all wear masks from time to
Yeah.
time, and you're playing this role of this character, very intense. I got it all together. Don't bother with me. I'm going forward. Come along with me or not. Yet now you're very authentic, very transparent. There had to be a shift in your mindset, a shift in your attitude, a shift in how you looked at life, your perspective, if you will. Do you know
Yeah.
when that shift, that defining moment happened
Yeah.
to you?
I mean, it was all again in that same season. And it was all again in that same season of self-discovery. It was all in that same season of being in an environment where I was accepted. There was a season of, one of the things that kind of coupled on this, and again, in the start of being in the Maxwell world, the self-development was doing a 360 review. And people said, hey, it's all about you. It was like, well, what's about me? Because I don't have a lot of like personal aspirations and goals. I want to collaborate. I want to help everyone get somewhere. And that wasn't what they saw and read. It was like, oh, okay, well, that's a problem. And it was really through this period of embracing what happened with my brother, understanding the armor that I put on, these barriers, and recognizing those barriers, understanding that the solution to insecurity is empathy, but as well realizing that, hey, the more vulnerable, authentic, the more that I aim to connect, the more that I just I put that armor aside. Man, that's what changed everything. One thing that I've understood, and I have some friends that were Navy SEALs, and I've had a podcast or two with them, and we've talked about this at times. And I asked my friend, I said, hey, who survives BUDS training? So, the basic underwater demolition
Right.
that they do in Coronado
Yeah.
Island. And I said, who survives? And my friend was like, Stephen was like, oh, that's easy. The people that don't try to do it on their own. The people that link arms with the others beside them, those are the ones that survive. The ones that try to do it on their own, the popular figure who walks around on stages every day and says, look at me, look at me, look at me. He's not well revered within the Navy SEALs because he tried to do it all on his own. So he's not a model of, what you should aspire in leadership. Personal, fine, great, whatever. There's people that have accomplished a lot personally, but they haven't changed the world. And, again, when I talk to my friends, they're like, oh, no, it's linking arms. And one of the things that I realize, in order to link arms with someone, you have to kind of put your arms up, right? And you have to expose your vital organs. Well, to expose your vital organs makes you available to link arms with someone else. That means in order to link arms with someone, you have to be vulnerable. This is who I am. This is what I am. These are the limitations that I have. I also have unique, amazing gifts. We all do, just like you do and I do. Everyone listening has unique gifts. But where we get in trouble is thinking, oh, I have it all figured out, like you mentioned earlier, instead of saying, no, I am only one puzzle piece in this master puzzle of life. And if I can find everyone else that fits in this puzzle together, then it all works out. But if I try to be the puzzle, it's never going to be complete. And it takes vulnerability. And that to me comes back to this mental picture of empathy, of putting your arm around someone means that you have to expose yourself. You have to be vulnerable to put your arm around someone, and they have to do the same. They have to put your arm around you. So for me, that was a real period of understanding. Oh, you get stronger the more vulnerable you are. You're not weaker. And it's often I say, it's like, hey, if I tell you the worst things about me, what are you going to use against me? Because it's already known. Great. Where do we go from here? It doesn't matter. If I acknowledge whatever my weakness is in sports, right? If you acknowledge your weakness in sport and you say, yeah, I can see that's my weakness. Well, the opponent has a really hard time using it against you because everything you're going to do is to mitigate that. Same in life. If you acknowledge your weakness and your vulnerabilities, all right, try to use it against me. It's going to be real hard.
There's so many people out there that they work hard to impress people. And I find by bragging about yourself and doing all these wonderful things, we're always impressing others. Yet you're talking about impacting people, being vulnerable enough that people are impacted by your story, as we're being impacted right now by yours. And when we're able to impact people, that's like John Maxwell in the book, everyone communicates, few connect.
Yes.
I want to, there's two directions my mind wants to go right now, because
Let's go.
John talks about fencing in or fencing out.
Love that
And the
story.
other thing, he talks about communication and connecting with people. So I want us to talk for just a moment about fencing in or fencing out. And then I want us to share with people some things, some ways that you have found to connect with people, to stand out in the crowd to where you're literally fencing out. So let's start in. What do we mean by fencing in and fencing out?
You know, this is one of the stories that I love. I probably relate to people a lot on this story. So I'm so excited you brought it up. This wasn't planned. Like, and
no, it wasn't.
Dianna and I have been in enough rooms and understand each other. It's not surprising that we would both, these two elements, love it. One of the areas that I see this happen the most, I see it in youth sports. And what will happen is a youth coach will, they kind of have this role, right? And they're thinking, well, I need to just own this entire space. And for example, say in a high school football program, it's high school football season right now as we're recording this. I have two sons that play high school football. And just imagine there's a coach who's a part of the high school system. Say he's a freshman coach, but there's a JV and a varsity coach as well. And he's like, this is what we will do on my team. Well, it's one thing if it fits within the entire program. It's another if it's just the coach is like, this is just my team. And so this is an example of if it's the entire program, then we're going to fence all of this in and say, hey, this is who we are as a community, and everyone's got a place and we'll navigate inside of it. But all of a sudden, if one coach says, well, on my team, this is how it's going to be, he is fencing everyone out saying, it is my way or the highway. And I see it happen so often. I'm really involved in youth sports. I think it is probably the greatest place of leadership development that no one talks about in our country. Because one of the things I've realized is coaches in high school, high school coaches, doesn't matter. They are preparing the next generation of workers of what to expect from their leaders. So if you run an organization and say you have, Gen Z workers that are, 18 to 24, just go back and ask them what their high school coach or their club coach was like, and that will determine what they expect of leaders. So anyways, these coaches that fence out, meaning, hey, this is my program, this is what we do on my team. To me, it's the insecurity of, I don't know how to be a part of the bigger picture, so I'm going to dictate everything that happens here. And one of the things that I'm seeing and that I've seen at times is it causes a lack of collaboration. Meaning you don't collaborate with others because you're so afraid of being turf ridden, right? You're just trying to protect your turf that you're not trying to say, well, how can I share what I have with someone else? And man, if I'm really good at, let's just talk about football, right? If I'm really good at offense and I'm okay at defense, but I'm really good at offense. And there's a guy over here that's really good at defense, but it's got to be my way. He has to run defense my way. Right. Are we collaborating and helping anyone? No. Yeah. Remember the movie, Remember the Titans?
I love that movie. One of my favorites.
Love that movie.
Yes.
Actually, I think it was just like an anniversary, 2024, something like that anniversary. But in that, the two coaches, they came together, right? You have Denzel Washington, you have a black coach, white coach during, segregation times. They come together to be integrated, and they had to come to a point because they each wanted to be that coach. And they had to understand one of them was really good at offense and one of them was really good at defense. And when they came around to collaborate rather than fencing each other out, they fenced in the whole team. Man, they accomplished so much more. And they made a tremendous impact on the lives of every single player on that team because it was no longer black, white. It was no longer offense, defense. It was, we are the Titans. And so those are the things that I get excited about talking to people about because I understand there was a part in my life where I was fencing people out. Again, because it was my armor of I didn't know what value I had. So I had to continue to fence off turf. Well, I know that. I know that. Let me tell you how much I know, because I wasn't confident in what I did and didn't. I wasn't confident in what value I had to say, oh, yeah, come over here and graze. No big deal. I got plenty of grass. Instead, I was afraid of, my resources.
The interesting part to me, there's many things that come to mind, like the Kansas City Chiefs, whether you like them or
Yeah.
not. I'm a Bronco fan, so quite frankly, I don't like to see the Chiefs win. Yet I really admire the team because the coach collaborates with the members.
Oh, yeah.
He asks his players, what are you seeing out there? What's
Yes.
going on? What do I need to know? He doesn't think that it's his team,
wait a second.
and
Let's
he doesn't
just stop.
call them my players.
Let's use an example in real world, right? I love this about sports, right? Let's think about this from a real estate, right? And you're in real estate and talk about it. It would be like if you said, hey, in all the markets your team's involved in, and say we'll use, Denver, right? Just use that. And all of a sudden, well, this is how we're going to, operate as agents. And they're like, sorry, that doesn't work here. And you're like, yes, it does. It did when I was there. It's going to work. And that's how we're going to do it. Instead of saying, hey, what's going on? What people are coming? What people are looking for houses? What's going on in the market? Ask the people there and be willing to, see it from their perspective. I don't understand why. I was talking to a buddy of mine about this. Okay. We'll talk about football for a minute. And I've seen a lot of coaches say this, and you talk about the Chiefs, and, Andy Reid does such a phenomenal job with Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, what do you see? You're out there on the field. And I was talking to my friend about this. We both have sons who are quarterbacks. And I'm like, I don't care if he's, 26, I think Mahomes is 26, 25, 26, and a professional quarterback, or he's 9 and he's in, 3rd or 4th grade. I want to ask him, what do you see? You can't start too soon. And the coach, the leader who is too afraid of asking their player what they see because they don't know how to respond to it, that holds everyone back. And it's no different
and how
in
we view things
than it is in business. Yeah.
Well, yeah, how we view things is how we do things.
Yeah.
So if we don't understand how people view things, we don't know what they're going to do. Yet when we ask people, what do you see? What do you see that I don't see? What do you hear that I don't hear? Now, all of a sudden, we almost can predict what they're going to do because how we view things is how we do things. So let's talk about.
Hold on. I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Can we go talk about one thing?
Let's go.
So you and I have been involved in roundtables. In my leadership organization, I lead communities roundtables. We've been a part of those. We've seen how John's modeled them. One of the things that I see and value roundtables, and roundtables means that, we're all sitting at the table and we all have a different perspective and we share that perspective. It allows for layered learning, and then all of a sudden we get better. Right. Well, let me give you another revelation I had about a roundtable. Is, oftentimes they'll say from a self-awareness, hey, you need to take a look in the mirror. Okay. Well, we are on a video screen right now. And if I were to change it, video screen zooms give you the opportunity to mirror. For example, I'm looking in the background. I see in the background your book, Becoming More. Now, if you don't have it mirrored, you look in that and it is written backwards. And so if that's the case, that's very normal. Like you look in the mirror and if you look at something written on your shirt, it's backwards. And this is what I understood and realized is when we say, hey, take a look in the mirror, we can look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm real happy with that. I'm used to that. I'm used to the words being backwards. I'm used to the structure of my face being backwards. But all of a sudden, the moment we see ourselves on a video screen like this that's not mirrored, or we see a picture of us, we're like, ooh, I don't like the way I look. See, the reality is what we see in the mirror is what we get used to, and those are our intentions. What people see sitting across from us through the window, that's the reality. And if we don't take time to ask people, hey, what do you see through the window? We're going to get real used to what we see in the mirror. And then all of a sudden our interactions are off and we're like, well, I'm looking in the mirror and I love it. And all of a sudden they're looking through the window and they're like, dude, there's dirt and there's bugs and there's stuff all over this window. You need to clean your window. And you're like, I'm looking in the mirror. It looks real good. Because it takes the opportunity to say what the mirror is our intentions, but through the window is our actions. And the more that we can go to someone and say, hey, Dianna, what do you see looking at me? What do you see through the window? Our interactions, what do you see? And then all of a sudden I have to measure the difference between the window and the mirror. No different than we do on camera every day. When we look across, like, is it mirrored or not? That was a revelation that I had, just a matter of months ago, a year ago, when it was like, oh, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I love what you're saying because, Einstein said that when we look at ourselves, we have become so habitual in the way that we do things, habitual in the way that we see things, that we're literally stuck and we don't even realize it. And when we ask the people, what is it like to work with me? What is it like to be around me? What's it like to receive a text from me? We may hear things we don't really want to hear, yet we need to hear. And I love what all the things that you're saying here, Tyler, and the ways that you're helping us become more. And I know that you're a good connector. So in the last 5 minutes that we have together, I want to.
Is that all we have? Oh my goodness, this is flown by.
Has the time gone by? They say if you do something different, the time it goes so fast because you're having so much fun. And it's like, wow. So here's what I want to know though, because you connect. What are some things? Do you have rules of connections? Do you have habitual ways that you've taught yourself to connect? And if so, what could you share with all of our listeners right now about connecting with other people and doing it very quickly?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I realized is you can't lead people without connecting with them. That's my belief, is that, each leader has a vision, but they can't influence people without connecting with them. It goes back to empathy, putting your arm around them. One of the things early in I would say this advance and understanding who I was that I did not understood is that my demeanor impacted rooms. Meaning if I walked into a room, if I was smiling and happy, well, it was pretty light and airy. But if I walked into a room and I had a furrow bow and I was really intense, people would be affected by that. I didn't understand that. I had a few people tell me that. And I remember walking into a room. It was in Fort Lauderdale at John Maxwell Exchange. And it was, I think, in 2020, 2021, something like that. Whenever we had it back, I think it was 2020. And I remember walking into that room and that day realizing, oh, the energy I walk into this room is going to impact the relationships and the connections I have with people. And so one of the things that I realize is the easiest, simplest way that goes across every culture, every language, every race to connect with people is just a smile. All you have to do to connect with people is smile. So the fastest way to connect with someone is just smile. You want to connect with people in a room, walk in and smile. You want to connect with someone sitting at a table, smile. You want to lower the tension of a difficult moment, just sit and smile. That's all it takes is smile.
It's interesting because the mirror neurons right here behind our forehead literally are put there for us to know danger, right? You already know this. And so when we smile, we're giving their mirror neurons chemicals that will be dispersed in their own body that make them happy. And so a smile is a great way to connect. I notice you also speak with people and you look at them direct, like there's nobody else in the room.
Yeah. Well, I try to. Thank you for recognizing that. I mean, I appreciate, one of the things that I realized, and we've learned this too, is that, there's the people that you walk out of a room is like, oh man, they're amazing, right? And we have those people and that's good, right? And then there's people that you walk away from them and, you feel like they made me feel amazing. And, part of connecting, and I think there's a big difference in our world, right? Professional world of networking and connecting. Networking is how can I get for me? Connecting is how can I engage with you and serve you? And I believe this, and I've seen this. If we connect, meaning how can I give to you? How can I help what you're doing through whatever I have through people connections or whatever, something I'm good at? If I can bring that to you, man, I believe in just that God's reciprocity, that something will come back to me in some way, somehow. And I've seen it happen again. But I also know this is there's nothing more defeating than aiming to network and get nowhere. And there's nothing more fulfilling than aiming to connect and watch something blossom and go. And that's just something I've come to grips with and understood, that if you can be in the moment with someone and say, hey, if I can add value to you, man, it's going to be so fulfilling for both of us.
It really is. And you spoke at the very beginning. I'm going to kind of loop us back here for just a moment. We talked about mentors.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that the mentors in our life, as Jim Rohn and everyone prior to him, God himself said in the Bible, who we hang out with is who we become. And so when it came to choosing mentors, you and I came up with a lot of the same people. Yet, what was it that do you have certain characteristics you look for in a mentor?
Yeah.
And do you believe, as I do, that we need to have more than one mentor in our life?
What's quite interesting, before I decided to get involved in the Maxwell community, I was looking at being involved in a mastermind with someone else. And at that point, I just, and my wife, Kelly, was like, and I ended up ended up going and choosing the Maxwell community. And this is what I understood later on. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I'd made the other choice. I may have made some money, but I would not be the person with the impact and the connections, the relationships, the personal values that I have today had I made a different choice. And what I understood and what I've understood through time, it's the values. What do they value? What's the most important values? And then that will lead you into the community. And when I think about, John being a mentor, when I think about Mark, when I think about you being a mentor, what I understand is when you choose a mentor, you're also choosing their community, and that community becomes your mentors. So when I think about, again, mention yourself. When I think about, Chad Johnson as a friend, as a mentor, when I think about Jeremy Foster, when I could go down the list of hundreds of people that entering into that community has not been one mentor, has been 100 mentors and peers, because we don't have the exact same values, but we have a common set of values that values other people. And what I've understood over time is the people that, again, and this is emphasizing it, value that will continue to show up. And the people that value that will transform. I transformed in that space, and I also have seen others transform, because those values are really what were in my heart. But yet I had this armor that was covering it, and it allowed those values to be expressed in service of others.
Well, I know both you and I love to add value to other people. And every day my phone goes off at 7 a.m. and it says, what will you do today to add value to others? And at 7 p.m. the alarm goes off and it says, what did you do today to add value to others? It's been doing that since I could set the alarm. Before that, it was written in my calendar when we used to have those old calendar. Well, I still do. I still like to write things down. And I've got to tell you, you've added value so much to each and every one of us. Everyone that is listening to this, I know that you're wanting to know more about Tyler. So tell us, how do we connect? We put it on the screen as well. Yet, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I would say two real things. The first one, YouTube, that's where I have most of my material, most of my content. It kind of lives forever. So if you go to YouTube, Impact Driven Leader, you can as well go to my website, tylerdickerhoof.com, where I have a lot of links to all of that content, whether it's my coaching community, my live events, my weekly newsletter. You can grab all of that stuff there. Dianna, thank you for adding value to my life. Thank you for adding value to my life by being a friend, for inviting me here to spend time with you. And most importantly, thank you for adding value in my life, for continuing to cheer me on. And I appreciate that so much.
You know, and we appreciate you so very much because you do the same for others. And I just know that we're going to want you back on this show because you have helped each and every one of us become more. Thank you so much. And we trust that even though we weren't able to see a cow or a steer walk by, maybe next time we'll get to do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Enjoy. See you later, friend. Bye-bye.
In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.